you're not bringing in enough revenue, and that means not enough tax money, or the money's being spent in, you're spending more than you're bringing in, and for Carbondale and a lot of municipalities, that pension thing, that is not going to go away, and it may get worse. And there isn't all that much you can do about it. The other thing a city can do is they can make sure they're not making bad investments. Are there any things that stick out in your mind as things the city's gotten involved in over the past 6 years that really isn't the business of a city government? There's been some controversy about funds for social organizations like Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and there was a great deal of hullabaloo when funding was cut for the North Side. But what's the business of the city? And what should the city be investing in?
Well, I think we need to be investing in our people and also our future. So I mean, I'm not, you know, and I guess I've always been sort of moderate in most of my thoughts, which actually a lot of times puts me in the minority here in Carbondale, because my feeling is Carbondale is, in some ways, it's 45% liberal, 45% conservative, and I guess I'm the product of my parents, as I started off talking about, whereas my father was this introvert CPA, my mother was this extrovert librarian. She always loved having people over for socializing, whether after church or some other time during the week. But yeah, and I think we just need to address what we can and can't do. I mean, if you look at Southern Illinois, and Carbondale has probably invested the most, or actually contributes the most to community organizations, to their programs. And I always want to stress, it's the programs of these organizations. They're not the city's programs. So it's when during good times, when we have extra funds and we can help them out, that's great. Because I mean, I think we do need to have some responsibility and contribute towards the youth of our community. And that was one of the key things with the Boys and Girls Club. And the Boys and Girls Club, I mean, they serve the whole town. I mean, actually most of the kids that participate are from the Northeast. But the reason, I don't know if you're familiar with the history of that, is, and it was even right before I got here, there was an incident where a couple kids were shot just because basically they had nothing better to do. And that's kind of how then the community came together. John Cherry was one of the leaders of that, and I mean they saw this model Boys and Girls Club that's been going on for decades, and so they formed a Boys and Girls Club of Carbondale and got that going. However, it's sort of a grassroots organization as well, and they kind of have to build from the ground up, especially with their clients or customers. And so they start off with younger groups. I'm not sure if it starts off at 7 or 8 years old and then actually goes up in the teens. So by the time the kids that start off, reach 13, 14, 15, whatever, they were having difficulties getting funding for those projects, whereas that was the age group we needed to be reaching to begin with. And so I was very supportive of continuing to contribute to that, because they had a good track record on what they were doing, and they were being very accountable. Same with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, the Women's Center. I mean, that's obviously a key part for Carbondale, Good Samaritan. But I think it goes back to what we're able to contribute. And unfortunately, when the state cut $500,000 from our state income tax portion, most of that came from the contributions that we were making to organizations in the past. But yeah, and unfortunately, if we have to make cuts again, that probably will be from those organizations. And I think when we get applications for or requests for funds, we always look at if there's any, I guess, redundancy of duplication of services, and so we try to okay, well, the Boys and Girls Club, they're doing basically what some of the other organizations are doing. Would we be better off cutting that pie up and giving everybody a little sliver, or would we be serving the community better by okay, let's give them half the pie? So I think that's one of our rationale, the council's rationale, maybe for giving the Boys and Girls Club and Big Brothers, Big Sisters maybe a little bit more, a bigger piece of the pie, because it's going to be more cost effective to focus in on 1 or 2 programs as opposed to spreading it out over 6 or 7 programs.
And that's the way you feel about it? It should stay that way, or would you
Well,
change
we
it?
review it every year when the applications, you know, are brought into us. But I go back to my adage that, I mean, we need to focus on what our mission is, you know, and again, it's providing the public health and safety for the residents, police, fire, water, sewer, garbage. We need to be meeting those needs first and that mission before we address other missions, such as education. I'm a firm believer that education, that's the mission of the school. So, you know, we talked about the 2 school districts. I mean, they need to be working on that. You know, if they need to consolidate so that they can actually do a better job educating our community, then so be it. I mean, it's like the park district, their focus, their mission is, you know, providing recreation, and a lot of times people don't remember or they don't know that the park district is actually a separate entity from the city. I mean, that's their job. We actually own a couple of the parks, and then we just, you know, lease it to the park district for like $1 a year. But again, that's their mission. The library has its mission. You guys have your mission. I mean, I think we all need to sometimes regroup and focus on, you know, what is our mission. I think, and as a few candidates point out, that, you know, a lot of times this is, you know, helping these organizations is the responsibility of the community at large. So it does take a combination. I mean, it is a jigsaw puzzle that we need to look at piece by piece.
Well, let me ask a follow-up on the bad investment thing. The city's on the hook a little bit for the investing in the stadium grill. Where were you at on that project?
You know, I can't remember how I voted on it, because I know there's some incentive programs that I've actually voted against, because especially if it's in an area that's, you know, sort of a high traffic area. But if it's an area that's blighted, you know, then I'm in favor of it. I probably voted for it because I know that area it's been in decline. And I don't know if you were here when the old single story, you know, hotel cottages, I don't know, whatever they were here. I mean, it was probably one of the biggest eyesores in town. And I mean, it was great when they finally got torn down, because that's obviously one of the things that, you know, students and their parents would see as they were driving in, these dilapidated, you know, single story, you know, hotel complex. So yeah, that was, I mean, it was definitely an area that needed to be cleaned up and invested in. One area that I voted against was actually after the Kroger's East was built, because I mean, and that was actually before I got on the council. I mean, I would have been in favor of supporting incentives for that area before that started getting built up. But once, you know, Kroger's was there, Kohl's was there, I mean, that's now, you know, the attractive place to build, because that's where people are going. So I mean, for continued development there, I was opposed to giving more incentives out, because like, why give away the farm? Because I've always felt that, I mean, if you provided good community development, meaning, you know, your infrastructure, you know, your sewer, water, you have good schools, healthcare, I mean, that's what's a lot of times is going to attract, you know, businesses to come to your town. And I've always been very supportive with local businesses, which is actually another my focus with the downtown, because a lot of the businesses that are still downtown, basically, you know, they're 2-3 generations. I don't know if we have any third generation businesses, but essentially, you know, they built their businesses from the ground up, you know, sweat of their brow, and they're always complaining about, you know, my dad, you know, built this this business. How come, you know, we're giving away tax incentives, you know, for some multinational or corporation to come in here to, you know, get these tax incentives, where a lot of times they'll come in, you know, for the life of the tax incentive, and then they might leave. So.
Let me follow up on that real quick. You know, one thing that I think Mayor Cole might say as a highlight of his tenure as mayor, and it's evident in a lot of the signs that get put up of, you know, we're making way for progress, different projects, things like that. Probably one of the highlights he would say was his success in bringing business to Carbondale. What do you feel Carbondale has done right in business development, and how would you improve it?
Well, again, I think just providing the basis or the foundation. Like I said, Gordon, we have 60 to 70,000 people in town every day, and I think the businesses that come here, that's one of the first things that they look at. A lot of times, you know, before they even approach our elected officials, they've already sent scouts or spies to the community to just see, well, would this be a good place for us to set up? And they look up the numbers of who's here. If I was a corporation, I knew that 60 to 70,000 people were driving through every day, I wouldn't hesitate to set up shop there. Knowing that we have 20,000 students that are here all the time, heck, we have a captive audience. They look at, okay, well, would there be good health care if we were to bring in employees? The schools, are they good? And I think we have some great schools here. So I think just continuing to educate, I guess, business headhunters that are looking to set up businesses, just informing them, hey, we have a good foundation. We're not even close to meeting the peak of our water supply, our capacity for that. So I would just continue with that. And like our city manager or our assistant city manager, his focus is actually supposed to be in economic development. And I think one of the things that we can help him out with is by reinstating at least the manager for building and neighborhood services and take some of that load off him. Because essentially he's got the work of 4 jobs that were placed on his shoulders. When we didn't fill the director of development services, which then oversaw planning services and building and neighborhood services, that kind of got dumped on Kevin to oversee it too. So I'm never sure if Kevin's coming or going when I see him. So, but yeah, I mean there needs to be a balance of community development and economic development. But I think a lot of times what you do beforehand attracts the businesses to come to you. But I think, and also even your question about the our being friendly as far as being have the ability to sell alcohol. I think if our grocery stores or other stores were allowed to sell alcohol, there's probably some stores that would probably be here. I think Trader Joe's was one that was looking at Carbondale, but obviously if they're not able to sell beer or wine, and I'm not sure how big of a part of their business that is, but they wouldn't be allowed to do that, so they didn't come. And I don't know if that was the reason why they did or didn't come, but
we have about 10 minutes left, and we'll hit the 1 hour mark. And I want to make sure that you've got proper time to address a couple of things that we haven't yet asked you about. I want you to talk about crime in Carbondale, whether you see it as a problem, and what you would do about it. And the other thing that we're going to ask all the candidates about, your campaign, who's contributing to it, and that kind of stuff. In either order.
Well, flip a coin here. Let's start with my, contributions. I don't know. Do you want what I released to the state, or essentially it's pretty much been all local. I've raised a little over $5,000. 1,000 of that is mine, so I guess I've only raised 4. 1,000 of that came from one of the unions. $500 came from Schnucks. Everything else was $200 or less, down to $25. Actually, it was kind of interesting. 2 years ago when I ran, I didn't do any fundraising, and I raised $126. 20 came from Williamson County, 6 came from South Dakota, and then the other 100 came from 4 people here in Carbondale. And so I've never, I guess that's always one of my shortfalls in campaigning. I've never really felt like needed a whole lot of money to run a campaign, because basically what I do is I go door to door, which is actually my favorite thing to do. Is then I get to meet people and talk with them and find out what they like about Carbondale, what they don't like about Carbondale, so we can address both of those issues. And that doesn't really take a whole lot of money. In the past I would just do these cheap little flyers, which my co-campaign managers frowned upon, so they made me get something a little more professional looking, I guess. And I don't know if residents really care what it looks like as long as what it reads. Because obviously last time I got the most votes for the 3 candidates that won. I forgot the first question. Crime. Well, I agree. Well, any crime is too much crime. But I think here in Carbondale, a lot of times, especially this past few years, people think that crime has actually gone up. We're actually, I guess the stats, and you can do anything with statistics, but the stats that I've been given is actually crime has gone down. I think the reason why people think it's gone up because of our new police chief, Chief Gwynn, I mean, he's very interested in community policing, getting the community involved, and informing the community. So I mean, he's used